couple of weeks ago, I mentioned this show. Let's finally talk about one of my favorite shows of all time, Fringe. Fringe aired on Fox from 2008 to 2013, and originally it was conceived as sort of like an X-Files Case of the Week show where Olivia Dunham and Peter Bishop, Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek, were tasked with solving like paranormal crimes, right? So this was people who were experimenting with science and time travel and like gene editing and superpowers and mutants, and it very quickly established itself as a show that was about a lot more than that. The show was very tropey and gave us a lot of examples of tropes that people were sort of obsessed with. So, found family. The original conceit of the show was that Olivia Dunham is trying to solve these cases that are all sort of connected through the paranormal, and she goes to break Walter Bishop out of the like mental facility that he's been in for like 35 years. He is not allowed to be out on his own, so she has to have his son Peter Bishop, who is estranged from his father, come, and that's sort of the core of the show. Astrid Farnsworth, the girl on the end, is tasked with sort of assisting, and she's like watching over Walter and helping Olivia because she works for the FBI too. The show was found family. The show was slow burn. The show was not enemies to lovers, but it gave us a real slow burn because you guys are not used to what we had to go through with network TV, where they would make you wait 5, 6, 7 years. I think on Bones, they waited like 6 years to make them kiss. Fringe made us wait many, many years, and it was obvious that they were like gonna get together, but you had to be locked in. One of the core themes of the show was that family is what you make of it, right? Olivia comes from a sort of broken family situation. She has a bad stepfather and a bad like home life. She had a sister at one point, and then the sister sort of disappears off of the show. A lot of the core emotionality of Olivia Dunham's character is that she is alone. She's fundamentally lonely, and it turns out that she was like experimented on. As you can imagine with these types of shows, it is always very clear what they're going for. It started off as a Case of the Week show, but like I said, you very clearly understand that there's like an overarching mystery when it comes to the observers and the pattern that connects all of these cases. And if you're a real head and you follow me, you know that one of my core obsessions and like special interests is alternate universes. This show eventually takes us to an alternate universe. There's a whole season that takes place in an alternate universe. I'm not going to give you a lot of spoilers as to how or why or when, but it is very, very good because I was so locked in. As soon as there was the possibility of another universe, I was like freaking out. I had a Tumblr blog about Fringe. Like, I love this show. One of the core things about Fringe is that it was always interested in exploring the possibility of making different choices, right? Obviously, the alternate universe is a metaphor for that, but fundamentally, this is a story about atoning for your past actions, for your past sins. This is a story about coming to terms with who you are and understanding that doing something bad does not fundamentally make you a bad person. And not to talk about myself again, but if you follow me, you know that I'm not a big fan of redemption arcs. I don't ever believe that they're like narratively earned. This show does something interesting because it gives us many years to sort of look at the action of atoning, right? There's a difference between trying to be redeemed and being like, oh, but I'm sorry, right? The American obsession with apologizing. Apologizing doesn't really mean anything, right? Those are just words. Whereas atoning for your sins is like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for this really fucked up thing that I did. And that's the arc that Walter Bishop takes. Some consider this episode, White Tulip, in the fourth season to be one of the best episodes of the show because it takes a very stark look at like what it means to live with the weight of your actions, what it means to live with the weight of your sins, and try to understand that, again, you are not a bad person because you fucked up, right? You are not a bad person because you made a mistake 35 years ago. And so Walter is finally sort of able to release himself from this like mental load that he's carried forever. This is a show about finding home. This is a show about finding your family. This is a show about making your own home, making your own family, understanding that the connections that you come into this earth with are not the end all and be all of everything you will ever be. This is a show about knowing that like because you were born a certain way, it doesn't condemn you to a life of evil or sin or pain, right? I keep saying sin because the show does get a little religious at times, but they drop that in season 2. But like at the end of the day, this is a show about understanding that like you are able to make choices in this life and your choices will put you on different paths, right? Again, the alternate universe as a metaphor for like the branching, the fig tree, right? The Sylvia Plath metaphor. But like ultimately, this is a show about understanding that you are in control of your life, you are in control of the driver's seat, and you can make choices that, yes, will have actions on other people, but do not fundamentally make you a bad person, do not fundamentally like poison you forever. And on top of that, you get time travel, you get alternate universes, you get mutants, you get like planes, you get I can't even list all of the stuff that they get up to, but there is so much crazy shit on the show. There's an episode that takes place when they're all like tripping. There's an episode that takes place that's all animated. There's an episode that takes place in like the 1920s in noir. Like they really were allowed to do whatever they wanted for 5 years. It aired Fridays because nobody watched this show, but like the fact that it made it to the end, there's an entire season that takes place in a dystopia. There's an entire season that takes place in the alternate universe. Like they were given so much grace in a way that they would not be given today. And so I will always, always, always love and ride for this show.